1, 2, 3.
That includes sitting in the gutter with your feet into the road. Don't do that either, please.
Good morning, freedom fighters, ladies and gentlemen, and especially the children that have gone up this morning and new ethos. A new era of Anzac. Age shall not weary, nor
The Woods Royal Commission, as catalogued with the Police Integrity Commission, resulted in a 90-year suppression order containing 28 names of alleged pedophiles of prominent stature, including judges, government officials, an ex-Prime Minister, and others, frightening enough. That the Australian Government and Parliament has made no attempt to undo a 90-year suppression order for the supposed safety and well-being of the population is unacceptable. Revisited again in 2015 in the Senate Legal Constitutional Affairs Legislation Committee meeting, the then Senator Bill Heffernan delivered the same request for the findings to be released to the public. As the Senator stated, it is not so much the secret that's the problem, it's when a group of people such as the 28 keep each other's secrets. He quoted the judge of the day also. The judge, we, not I, we decided not to revisit the issue because the public would lose confidence in the judiciary system. Governor General, how can you justify a 90-year suppression order of the police report from the Woods Royal Commission, given that the Australian taxpayers paid out roughly $64 million on the case? We have the right to full disclosure of the investigation, given that we paid for it and therefore own it. 26 painful years later, we have stood each week since 30th of August 2021 at Government House in Queensland, and now daily since the 7th of February, we are either real victims, family members of victims, or friends of victims of the appalling industry of child trafficking and pedophilia. Governor General, your recent choice is here and acknowledged. We the people respectfully require the individual honoured with the position of Governor General to uphold the requirements of the office of Governor General.
Step up, you coward!
It is here and acknowledged we the people respectfully reserve the right to process the information in the supplied letter and the right to reply to the letter in writing. We the people wish to inquire why the Governor-General's office has not stepped in with the obvious police overreach in the inhibiting peaceful protesters, as is their protected rights in Australian law. Let it be up to the citizens of Australia to determine their level of confidence in the judiciary system, parliament and police in this matter. Yours sincerely, concerned citizens of Australia. I personally want to thank all the servicemen that are here today and all the servicemen that have come and gone, and the ones that came home but didn't come home as much as anybody else. My courage comes from my grandfather and these people. My courage to fight for this country, and they fought for our freedoms, they suffered for our freedoms, and what we are going through now is the loss, just a slow chipping away of our freedoms. And it starts off with things like, don't approach that person or don't talk to that person, you may offend them. Well, offence is taken by the person that's being talked to, and they can simply not take offence to it, and they can either choose to not value the person's statement or whatever it is. I believe that is how they chipped away at our communities. They stopped you talking to your neighbour, they stopped you talking to the guy down the road. Once upon a time, you're walking to the bus stop, you pass that same person 10 times, and next thing you know, you're having a conversation with them and you had something in common. That's community. That's what Australia is starting to miss. I've told the story before. I lived across the road from my elderly 86 neighbour for 5 years before I realised she had no hot water. Her hot water service had simply failed. She couldn't afford to fix it. How do you think I felt? It cost me $7.50 for a new element to fix her hot water service. And I didn't even know, and I lived across the road from her, and we conversed quite a lot. And she was the one that actually was responsible for accosting a guy who was trying to steal my car, and that's the reason I got my car back. And yet I didn't even know she had no hot water. She was showering cold. She was bathing cold. That is what I'm talking about. We can make this country great again, very simply. Make Australians great again. Everybody who's standing on this soil is Australian. If we make ourselves great again, we'll make this country great again. It's that easy. It is that easy. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you coming down here today and being part of this, because me by myself has little effect. But every day there is new faces here, there's new people here. Some have to come home and they come and see me and they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I've got to go home, Look, just take the fight with you. It's as easy as that. Make yourself into a great Australian at home. And then we'll become a great Australian country again. That's all it takes. Wear that shirt down to the supermarket that people don't like, because it'll start a conversation. It may even start a conversation with you. The person might talk to you about it. And then you might be surprised how many people actually semi-agree with you, or just agree that this country has a problem. It doesn't have to be any particular problem, just a problem that we can fix. Remember, we used to say, she'll be right. And people still do say she'll be right, but they go, she'll be right, someone else will fix it. No, that is not how it started. It's she'll be right, we'll knuckle down and we'll sort this shit out ourselves. And it'll be right. Together, as a community, as a neighbour. When I grew up, the 3 houses next door to me didn't have fences. We played cricket right the way along the yard, all the yards. There was no fence. There was no need for a fence. It was that easy. There was no need for a fence.
We are the 99%.
We are the 99%. We are the Australians that will make Australia great again. Thank you. We are her brothers, keeper. Thank you guys. Now, the stage truck is coming from the other area, because there's quite a few people now that have been arrested who are unable to enter the triangle and whatnot. So they've decided to move the speeches and the protests down here. Now, as I've said several times since I've been here 13 weeks, please keep this road open and vacant of people. Concentrate when you cross it, because the dignitary vehicles that come down here come at high speed, They are trained to look after the person in the car. That is their job. Just like all the jobs that some of you have lost. You would love to have your job back, and you wouldn't want other people to stop you from doing your job. So please keep the road open and just be aware if you have to cross it. The bike track, please don't block the people on the bike track. That is another thing that I ask personally. Don't block the people on the bike track. If someone stops and wants to listen to what we're saying, don't rush up to them and start waving things in their faces and stuff, because just them standing there listening is enough for them to learn something. And if they have an opinion, remember, freedom of rights. We want the right to express our views. Let them express their views. We don't have to accost them. We may not agree with them. They still have the right of freedom of speech, just like we do. Respect comes from both directions. So please, don't accost people if they come down and start disagreeing with us. That is their right, just like it is our right to disagree with them and other things. Don't stop people riding that bike track, please, guys. It's just common courtesy. I'm all about morals and that sort of thing. I try to keep mine as close and as good as I can, and I appreciate you guys, you know, taking some of my morals on board around here and just doing things because I asked you. That is a personal favour to me, and I really do appreciate it, because, as I've said before, your freedoms are just as important as anybody else's. If you want to express something a certain way, that is up to you. That is the whole thing with freedoms. We've got to get out of this thing that we can't let people do what they want freedom-wise, as long as it's not encroaching on someone else's freedom and not taking away other people's rights or freedoms. That's all I've got to say, guys. I really appreciate it. The truck will be here along shortly with some speeches from some of the other people that we wanted to hear from today, just because it's a better location for everybody. I think Dan wants to have a quick talk.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it. I just wanted to say a couple of things about the significance of today and what it means to us and what it means to me. So I've written something. So wars aren't often begun for good reasons. Certainly the men of power who make waging wars necessary, even if only to end them, aren't often good men, and their reasons are seldom good. But Anzac Day isn't about men of power. It isn't about their reasons. It isn't about rationalising just wars or condemning unjust wars. It isn't about celebrating victories, and it isn't about commemorating defeats. It's just about ordinary people. It's about the young men of an even younger Commonwealth going out into the unknown, each for their own different reasons, personal reasons, because each of them, like each of us, has a will and a destiny of our own. And it's about the sons of those men and their sons and theirs in numberless conflicts across the bloodiest century that we've ever seen. It's about their scars, their lessons, their personal miracles. It's about their pain, their growth, their overcoming, but it's mainly about their sacrifice. We talk a lot about the sacrifices the Anzacs made for us, the blood they shed, their own blood on behalf of generations current and generations yet to come. But not everyone that struggles and bleeds and triumphs and dies is fighting on behalf of someone else. Like I said, every man and every woman, every child that struggles in this world has his own will, has her own destiny. We each have our dreams, our unrealised potentials, our paths and purposes not yet understood. So when we come together and struggle together towards a common purpose, we still come for our own reasons. For the first Anzacs, there was patriotism, love of country, love of family. There was curiosity too, youthful restlessness and an appetite for adventure, and the hunger for self-definition. There was often shame too, reluctance, reasonable rational fear of injury and of death that was not too often overcome by their own courage. but by the pressures of a nation that expected particular things from them, and by a manipulation of those men of power whose reasons were seldom good. But I didn't come here today to talk about, tell you you're not to wage a war because the honey-tongued have lied to you about its causes. You've all learned the hard lessons about shame and deception. You've stood in the fields and marched in the streets, and we've been confronted on the footpaths and the offices by men and women ultimately as good and as flawed as us, tragically human as you and me, whose purpose in that moment was to try and make you forsake your own purpose and to forget it. I'm only here to remind you all of what the first Anzac had in common with the last, and what every Anzac has in common with you and me. To remind you that we all have known fear and shame and courage, and that we each possess our own will and our own destiny. And we each might huddle in the trenches, and we each might hurl ourselves into no man's land, and not for anybody else's reasons, but for our own. Because the Anzac story isn't just the story of the armed forces, and it isn't just the story of the Australians and New Zealanders. The Anzac story is the story of human beings. It's our story. It's yours and it's mine. Lest we forget.
Thank you for being here today. Now, let's mingle. Let's talk about our future, because the people standing here today are going to direct and make our future to what it is and what it's supposed to be. So that concludes our service this morning. Please continue on.
Try and say who we can, while we can, eh? Thank you very much, everybody. Awesome.
Linky, linky.
Absolutely awesome. We currently have no parliament.
Lick up, guys, lick up.
Let's hope it stays that way until we get the real people in. The real community. I mean, Scummo says, when do we want it? Now! What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! Governor General has to go! Governor General has to go! Governor General has to go! We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore. That's it. Turn your backs to it. Backs.
Look around first and see these kids. These kids are the ones that are going to walk and talk for us when we're past. They are our new Anzacs. In saying that, every single person here has started a new ethos of the new generation of Anzacs, because you are all now frontline fighters for freedom. And that's all I ever fought for, was freedom. Another thing I want to acknowledge. Today I walked around and I observed people and watched the interactions. But I also observed, and have done for the last 6 weeks, the people that are silent, that are behind the scenes, that unthankfully just fill up the toilet, move the toilet, stand sentry on our vehicles while we're doing ceremony, transitioning between group and group, the wives or the husbands that are home so we can be here. Personally, my wife has spent 22 years without me home. I finally retired and we're supposed to be together, but she sent me down with blessing. So it's not only the people on the ground, it is the support staff, the people behind us. Raise a hand for them as well, because they would be here if they could, but they are the ones keeping the fight going for us.
Thanks, Shane.